The city never sleeps. It's a truth I've come to appreciate over the years, especially when I'm sitting in my penthouse office, looking out at the New York skyline from the top floor of Adams Technologies. The lights are always on, always buzzing, just like the business I built from the ground up. I live in a world of meetings, mergers, and constant hustle. It's the life I've chosen and the life I've controlled for over a decade. The sound of money ticking in the background, the weight of corporate deals shifting, the hum of success that never seems to stop. But when the phone rang, I wasn't expecting it. I wasn't expecting her not after all these years. Jason, the voice came through, smooth and familiar, but it shook me all the same. I hadn't heard that voice in over 6 years. Chloe Walker. I let the phone sit for a second, the name on the screen flashing like a warning sign. Chloe, the woman I had loved and left, the one who had built a life that didn't need me, and now she was calling. I leaned back in my chair, trying to mask the sudden shift inside me. I had worked my entire life to build this empire. I had left my past behind, shut it out for the sake of my career. But it's funny, isn't it? The things you think you can bury come back when you least expect it. Chloe. I answered, my voice steady, controlled. But inside, I was already bracing myself. What's going on? Her voice on the other end of the line trembled, just a little. I could hear the quiet desperation in it, the crack that wasn't there before. Jason, I need to talk to you about something important. She paused, a long silence stretching between us. It's about Mia. The name hit me like a punch to the gut. For a second, I had no idea what she was talking about. Mia, my mind scrambled for the connection. But I didn't need to think too hard. She had always been the type to keep things from me, to protect herself from my decisions, from the person I had become. And this was no different. Mia, I repeated, my heart starting to race. Who is she? Jason, she's our daughter, Chloe said, her voice cracking. I didn't want to tell you, not like this. But she's sick, Jason, very sick. And she needs your blood. You're the only one who can help her. My blood ran cold. Our daughter. I didn't know anything about a daughter. I had buried that chapter of my life so deep that I didn't even think it was possible to come back to it. I didn't even know Chloe had kept something so important from me. She's what? I couldn't help the shock in my voice. How? How is that even possible? I never told you, Jason, she continued, her voice trembling now, more vulnerable than I had ever heard her. I didn't think you were ready for this. You were so focused on your career, on building your empire. But she needs you now. She needs your blood, Jason. It's rare, and you're the only match. The words she was saying didn't seem to make sense. Blood, our daughter. My mind was racing, trying to catch up with the reality of the situation. My career, my life, everything I thought I had under control was now being shattered by this phone call. Chloe, I don't know what to say, I said, my mind spinning. I don't even know she existed. Why didn't you tell me? I didn't want to drag you into this, she said, almost pleading. But now it's too late. She's in the hospital in Portland. The doctors say there's no one else who can help. I didn't know who else to call. Jason, please, you're her only hope. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. A daughter. A child I didn't know existed. And now, Chloe was telling me she needed me desperately. Tell me where to go. I said, the words leaving my mouth before I even realized it. "Give me the details." "I'll be there." She sighed in relief, and there was a quiet pause. "Portland Children's Hospital." "Please, Jason, I'm begging you. She needs you now more than ever." The line went silent as I processed the enormity of what Chloe had just told me. I was no longer just the CEO of Adams Technologies. I was someone's father, and I had no idea how to be that. I had spent so many years focused on the wrong things, on power, on ambition, and now it was too late, or so it felt. I hung up the phone and stared at it for a long time. The world outside my office window seemed distant, too far removed from the reality I had just learned. My hands were shaking as I placed the phone down. I could hear the quiet hum of my building, the city's constant buzz that had once felt like life itself. But now it felt like a hollow echo. I had a daughter, and I had no idea how to fix this, how to be the man she needed. I could easily turn this around, fly to Portland, make my presence known. But what would I say to her? What could I possibly offer to a daughter I'd never met? How could I possibly face Chloe again after abandoning her and making all the wrong choices? As much as I tried to convince myself that I was the CEO who could fix anything, the truth was, I didn't know if I could fix this. I had a life to salvage, a company to run. But this was different. This was real. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't know if I could handle it. I took a deep breath and glanced at my calendar, seeing the list of meetings and deadlines. But none of it seemed important anymore. I had a flight to catch, and somewhere in Portland, there was a little girl who was counting on me whether I was ready or not. I walked out of my office, dialing my assistant to arrange a flight to Portland, and something inside me knew that nothing would ever be the same again. I arrived at Portland Children's Hospital in the early hours of the morning, the sun barely peeking over the horizon. The city felt quieter than I expected, more subdued, as though the world itself was waiting. My mind raced with 1,000 thoughts about Mia, about Chloe, about everything I had missed. I had flown here in a daze, still processing the phone call, still trying to figure out what it all meant. The hospital was modern, clean, but the antiseptic smell made my stomach twist. I could hear the soft beeping of heart monitors, the faint sounds of footsteps and hushed voices echoing through the sterile hallways. But it all felt distant, like I was walking through someone else's nightmare. And yet, this was my reality now. The daughter I didn't know existed was in a room just down the hall, waiting for me. I walked down the long corridor, my footsteps muffled against the linoleum floor. I could feel my pulse thudding in my ears as I approached the room. Chloe was already there, sitting in a chair beside the bed, her eyes fixed on Mia. When Chloe looked up, she didn't smile. She didn't even greet me. Instead, she just stared. At me, her gaze sharp, full of judgment, full of the history between us. I could feel the weight of everything I had done wrong in those eyes, but I didn't back away. I couldn't. "Mia," I whispered, looking at the small figure lying in the bed. She was pale, too pale for a child her age. Her small body was hooked up to various IVs and monitors, the soft beeping of the machines the only sound in the room. Her chest rose and fell in shallow breaths. She was so small, so fragile. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. I had built my life around controlling everything, but standing here in front of this little girl, I realized how completely out of control I was. Chloe's voice broke through the silence, sharp and low. She's been like this for days. They're doing what they can, but without your blood, Jason, they don't know if she's going to make it." I nodded, still trying to absorb what was happening. My blood, the rare type I didn't even know was important until a few hours ago. "Chloe," I began, but my voice faltered. I didn't know what to say. I hadn't prepared for this. I hadn't prepared to face the consequences of my choices, my mistakes. Chloe stood up, her hands wrapped tightly around her purse, her face set in an expression I knew all too well. She had built a wall around herself, a wall that had been necessary when I wasn't there, when she was forced to raise Mia on her own. She didn't trust me, and I couldn't blame her. "You think you can just show up and fix everything, don't you?" she asked, her voice trembling with a mixture of anger and something else, something I couldn't place. I didn't answer her right away. I just stood there, staring at Mia, my daughter, the girl I had missed every step of the way, the girl I had no right to call mine. "I didn't ask for this, Jason," Chloe continued, her voice softening, but there was still bitterness in it. "I didn't want to bring you into this, but Mia needs you. I've been doing this on my own for so long, and I don't know if I can do it anymore, but I won't let you hurt her again." "I'm not here to hurt anyone," I said, finally finding my voice. "I'm here because I didn't know. I didn't know about Mia. I didn't know about any of this. But I'm here now, and I'll do whatever it takes to help her." Chloe's eyes narrowed. "You say that now, but how long before your career calls you back? How long before you're gone again, like you were before?" I flinched at her words. I knew she was right. My career had always been my excuse. It was the reason I hadn't been there, the reason I hadn't been present. But this was different. Mia was different. "I'm not going anywhere," I said, the words firm, the promise slipping out before I even realized it. I stepped closer to the bed, looking down at Mia. Her face was so innocent, so peaceful, despite everything going on around her. Chloe didn't respond. She just watched me, her eyes filled with skepticism and doubt. But I saw something in her, gaze that hadn't been there before, a flicker of hope buried beneath all the hurt. The minutes stretched into hours as I sat beside Mia's bed, trying to make sense of everything. I couldn't stop thinking about the years I had missed, the life I had failed to build with Chloe, and the mistakes I had made. The guilt gnawed at me. I had been so obsessed with building my empire, with proving myself in the business world, that I had completely neglected the one thing that truly mattered. Family. It wasn't just about the blood transfusion. It wasn't just about Mia's health, though that was important. It was about everything I had ignored, about the family I had walked away from, about the little girl in front of me who had no idea who I was, who had no idea what it meant for her father to be absent for so long. Chloe was right. I couldn't just walk back into their lives and expect everything to be fixed. I had to earn my place in their world, and I wasn't sure I knew how. By the time the doctors came to check on Mia, I had already made a decision. I couldn't walk away from this. I had to fight for her, for Mia. I had to prove to Chloe that I could be the man she needed me to be, that I could be the father Mia needed. I had spent too long hiding behind my work, behind my success. I had used it as an excuse, as a shield to avoid facing the things I was afraid of. But I wasn't afraid anymore. Not of this, not of being a father, not of facing the mess I had made. I stood up as the doctors left, and I turned to Chloe. "I'm not leaving," I said. "I don't care what happens with the company, with everything else. I'm staying here, with you, with Mia." She looked at me, her face softening, but the wariness never fully left her eyes. You better mean that, Jason. You don't get to just show up when it's convenient. This isn't about you. It's about Mia. And if you're not in this for the long haul, then don't bother. I nodded, my heart pounding. I'm in this. All the way. And for the first time in years, I felt like I was finally where I was supposed to be. The journey ahead wouldn't be easy, but I wasn't going to walk away from them again. Not this time. The days after my arrival in Portland felt like they stretched on forever. The hospital became my world, and though Mia was slowly improving, there was a heaviness in the air that didn't lift. I had hoped for clarity, but all I found was uncertainty. Every time I looked at Chloe, I felt the weight of the years I had missed, the mistakes I had made. It wasn't just about earning her trust anymore. It was about making sure Mia, my daughter, knew who I was and that I was never going to leave her side again. But that wasn't going to be easy. I'd spent every day at the hospital, sitting beside Mia's bed when she was awake, watching her sleep when she wasn't. I couldn't stand the thought of her being alone. Not after everything that had happened. There were moments when she looked at me with curiosity in her eyes. Moments when I thought I might have a chance to break through the wall between us. But then there were others when she clung to Chloe, retreating back into the world she knew, the world without me. Ember was always there too. Her presence was a constant, but there was no denying the distance between us. She didn't trust me, and I couldn't blame her for that. It wasn't just about the time I'd spent away from hurt. It was about the years I had spent hiding from what mattered most. One morning, as I sat in the waiting area near Mia's room, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I checked it, seeing an incoming call from Graham Klein. My heart sank. He had been relentless, pushing for me to return to New York and manage the crisis at the company. But now, with everything going on here, I knew I couldn't go back. Not yet. Not when Mia needed me. I let the call go to voicemail. Chloe was sitting at a nearby table, thumbing through some papers from the hospital. I couldn't help but notice how tired she looked, how worn out she had become from all the stress and worry. Her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, her eyes shadowed from sleepless nights. She was a mother, a fighter, and now she was caught in the middle of everything. Later that afternoon, after Mia had fallen asleep, Chloe and I were left alone in the small, quiet room. I could feel the tension between us, thick and unspoken, like an invisible wall that neither of us knew how to break. I don't want you here for the wrong reasons. Jason, Chloe said suddenly, her voice low but firm. She looked up at me, her eyes hard and defensive. You can't just walk into our lives and expect everything to be okay. Mia's life isn't a quick fix. It's not something you can just wave a magic wand at and make better. I'm not trying to fix anything, I replied, my voice steady but strained. I'm not here to make up for lost time with her. I'm here because she's my daughter, Chloe, and I'm not going to walk away from her again. Not now, not ever. Chloe didn't respond immediately. She stood up from the chair, pacing slightly, clearly wrestling with her emotions. I could see the conflict on her face. She wanted to believe me. I knew she did. But how could she? I had been the man who walked out on her, who had chosen work over everything else. You say that now, she said, her voice tight. But I've heard it before. You're a man of action, Jason. You've spent your whole life building your empire. You think you can just waltz in here and be a father overnight. That's not how it works. Mia needs more than your promises. She needs you to show up. Every day. Not just when it's convenient. I opened my mouth to respond, but the words didn't come. There was nothing I could say to make her believe me, not after all this time, but I couldn't back down. I couldn't just walk away like I had before. I know it's not going to be easy, I said finally, my voice quieter, more vulnerable than I had intended. But I swear to you, Chloe, I'm here for Mia. I'm not here to fix the past. I'm here to make sure she has a future where she knows who her father is, a future where I'm there for her. Chloe stopped pacing, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. She looked at me for a long moment, her expression unreadable. It felt like she was waiting for me to say something more, something that would convince her, something that would undo the hurt I had caused. I'm scared, she said quietly, her voice cracking. I'm scared of getting my hopes up again. You don't know what it's like, Jason. You don't know what it's been like to raise her on my own. I've had to protect her from everything, including you. I don't know if I can just let you back in. I don't expect you to, I said, standing up and stepping closer. I know I have to earn it. I know I can't just show up and expect everything to fall into place. But I will, Chloe. I'll earn your trust. And I'll earn Mia's. She looked away from me, her eyes flickering with doubt. But there was something else there, too, a flicker of hope, buried deep beneath the hurt and the anger. You don't have to fix everything. Jason, she said softly, almost to herself, you just have to be here. As the days passed, I found myself questioning everything I had built. Was this what I really wanted? To be here, in Portland, fighting for a daughter I had no idea how to raise. For Chloe, who had every right to hate me. But every time I looked at Mia, every time I saw her small, fragile form, I knew the answer. This was worth fighting for, and yet I was still haunted by the thought of New York, of my company, of the world I had built. There was still a part of me that wanted to go back to fix the mess I had left behind. The phone calls from Graham, the threats from the board, the deals waiting to be signed. My empire was crumbling without me. I stood at the hospital window one night, looking out over the city, the bright lights twinkling below. I could feel the pull of my old life, the promise of success and power. But I also felt the pull of something else, something stronger, something real. Family.Chloe was right. Mia needed me, and I couldn't walk away. I wouldn't walk away. The decision was clear, but the road ahead was anything but easy. I had a choice to make: stay here, in Portland, and fight for Mia and Chloe, or go back to New York and reclaim the empire I had always put first. But I knew one thing for sure. No matter the decision, I wasn't walking away from them again. The tension between Chloe and I was palpable, growing thicker with every day that passed. I was here, I was present, but I could feel the weight of the past pressing down on us both. Chloe was doing her best to keep things together, as always, but I could see it in her eyes, the exhaustion, the anger, and the unspoken fear. Fear that I wouldn't stay, that I'd slip away again the moment things got too hard. I couldn't blame her. I had done it before, but this time was different. This time I was committed. I had to be. For Mia, for Chloe. Every morning I would visit Mia's room. I'd sit beside her bed, talking softly, trying to get her to open up. At first, she would look at me with suspicion in her eyes, the same wariness I had seen in Chloe when I first arrived. Mia was strong, too strong for a child her age, and I couldn't help but admire her even as my heart broke for her. She had been through more than any child should ever endure, and I wasn't sure how to fix it. I wasn't even sure if I could fix it. Chloe, however, was a different story. The walls between us were high, and she wasn't letting me in. Every time I thought we might have a breakthrough, a quiet conversation where she might let her guard down, she'd shut me out. I couldn't blame her for that either. I had walked out on her on them when I should have been there. One evening, after Mia had gone to sleep, Chloe and I found ourselves in the hospital cafeteria. It was late, quiet, the fluorescent lights overhead flickering softly. The tables were empty, save for a few staff members and a couple of other families. Chloe sat across from me, her eyes tired, but her posture still rigid. She was in control, always in control. "How's she doing?" I asked, breaking the silence. Chloe didn't answer right away, as though she were weighing her words. "She's getting better," she said finally. "But she's not out of the woods yet. We need to keep a close eye on her for the next few days. Is there anything I can do?" I asked, genuinely wanting to help. Chloe met my gaze, and for a brief moment, I saw something shift in her eyes. It wasn't hope not yet, but maybe something close to it. She sighed, rubbing her temples as if the weight of it all was too much. "You're here, Jason," she said quietly, her voice soft. "That's what she needs. You being here. She needs to know that you're not going to disappear again. She's been through too much already. We both have." The weight of her words hit me like a ton of bricks. I was finally here, but I knew it wasn't enough. I hadn't earned anything yet. "I'm not going anywhere, Chloe," I said firmly. "I swear to you, I'm here to stay. I'm not leaving again." She looked at me for a long moment, as if measuring my sincerity. But when she spoke again, there was something else in her voice, something darker, something deeper. "You say that now," Chloe said, her voice tight. "But you don't know what you're asking. Mia needs more than just a warm body in the room. She needs stability. She needs trust. She needs me. And I can't do this alone anymore. Not if I'm being honest. I need you, Jason. I need you to be here. But I don't know if I can trust you." The words Chloe spoke were harder to hear than anything I had imagined. I had always known that earning her trust back would be difficult, but hearing her admit that she needed me, even if she couldn't fully trust me, struck a chord deep within me. She was scared of the unknown, scared of what would happen if she let her guard down. And I couldn't blame her. "I understand," I said, my voice softening. "I know I have to earn your trust. I'm not asking for you to forgive me overnight, Chloe, but I need you to know I'm here and I'm not going anywhere. Not for Mia, not for you." She didn't respond right away, and I could feel the weight of everything she had been carrying, everything we had both been carrying pressing down on her shoulders. It was too much. Mia's illness, the years of silence, the betrayal. Chloe had been doing everything alone, and now, after all this time, she was supposed to trust that I could make things right. "I've been thinking about everything," Chloe said finally, her voice low and weary. "About you, about what you did, and about Mia. And I realized something. I realized that I can't keep doing this alone. Not anymore." I stared at her, not sure if I heard her right. Was this a breakthrough? Or was it just another way for her to say that I had failed? "I don't know how to let you in, Jason," Chloe continued, her voice trembling with emotion. "I don't know if I can, but I need you here. Not just for Mia, for me. I need to know that I'm not going to be left alone again. The vulnerability in her voice hit me harder than any of her anger had. This wasn't about the past anymore. This wasn't about what I had done wrong. It was about the future, about building something new. Together, I stood up slowly, walking around the table to her side. I didn't say anything at first. I just reached for her hand. Chloe hesitated, but after a moment, she let me take it. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "I'm so sorry. I don't expect you to forgive me right away. But I'm not going anywhere." The hospital was quiet that night, the sound of the machines keeping rhythm with our thoughts. Mia was asleep in her room, the soft beeping of the heart monitor the only sign of life in the room. Chloe and I sat there, hand in hand, but we both knew this wasn't over. We had a long road ahead of us. Mia's health wasn't guaranteed, and our relationship, if you could even call it, that was fragile. I had so much to prove, and I had no idea where to start. But for the first time in a long time, I knew I wasn't walking away. I was here, and that meant something. The tension was palpable. Every day I spent in Portland, I was drawn deeper into the life I had ignored for so long. Mia's health was improving, but that didn't mean everything was suddenly perfect. There were still battles to fight both within the walls of the hospital and in the spaces between Chloe and me. The foundation was shaky, but every small interaction, every moment I spent with Mia, every quiet conversation with Chloe felt like I was slowly building something I could protect. But there was still the matter of depot, technologies and the looming threat from my past. The phone buzzed constantly. Calls from my legal team, texts from Graham Klein, and emails from investors all demanding answers. I had tried to ignore them, focus on Mia and Chloe, but it was impossible to completely escape the reality of my world back in New York. That morning, I couldn't avoid it any longer. I had a video call scheduled with Graham Klein, and I knew he wouldn't let me ignore it. As the screen flickered to life, Graham's face appeared stressed, impatient, the ever-present smirk on his face now replaced with a look of barely restrained frustration. "You're still in Portland?" he asked, his voice clipped. "The board is getting restless. Jason, you're putting everything on the line here." I sat up straighter, trying to shake the sense of guilt that crept in every time I was reminded of the empire I was leaving behind. "I'm aware of the situation, Graham," I replied, keeping my voice steady. "But right now, my focus has to be on Mia. I can't be in two places at once." Graham's eyes narrowed. "And what happens when Mia's better? Do you plan to walk away from everything you've built, Jason? This company, this legacy, you think it'll just sit there waiting for you?" I gripped the edge of the table, my jaw tight. "I'm not abandoning the company, Graham. I'm making sure that when I do come back, it's under my terms. I won't be rushed into any decisions right now. There's something more important than business, and you know that." Graham hesitated for a moment, then spoke again, more quietly this time. "This isn't just about you, Jason. It's about all of us. The company, the future. You think you can just step away and expect everything to hold together. The board isn't going to wait for you to decide whether you're going to play family man or CEO, and there's something else you need to know." I raised an eyebrow, suddenly intrigued by his shift in tone. "What do you mean?" Graham leaned in closer to the screen, his expression hardening. "Devo Technologies is circling again. They've made a new offer. If we don't act fast, we risk losing everything to them. They've been eyeing our market share for months. This merger, this acquisition, could be our only shot at saving the company." I felt a knot tighten in my chest. Devo Technologies, the same company that had been lurking in the background of my life for years, the one that had tried to undermine me, to steal my market share, and now they were circling again, waiting for weakness. I couldn't let them win. The decision became clear as I sat there, the call ending with a terse reminder from Graham: make your choice, Jason, but remember, every minute you spend away from the company is a minute Devo is taking advantage of. Don't make a mistake you can't fix. As I sat in the silence of my Portland apartment, my phone buzzing in my pocket, I realized just how much was at stake. This wasn't just about Mia's recovery or rebuilding my relationship with Chloe. This was about the legacy I had built from nothing. My company was my life, my identity. I had spent years building it, and now I was being asked to choose between them and my family. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the quiet city below. It seemed so far removed from the world I had left behind in New York. But this wasn't a game anymore. The stakes were higher than I had ever imagined. That night, after I had spent hours on the phone with legal teams and investors, trying to keep the wheels of Adams Technologies turning, I felt the weight of my decisions pressing down on me. Chloe had gone home for the night, leaving me alone in the apartment, and I sat there staring at the stack of documents and contracts in front of me. I had to make a choice. Do I go back to New York and reclaim my position, salvage my company, and risk losing everything I had fought so hard to rebuild with Chloe and Mia? Or do I stay in Portland, risk the future of Adams Technologies, and fight for the family I had never known I needed? My phone buzzed again this time. It was a message from Chloe. I opened it, my heart racing as I read. Mia wants to see you. She asked for you. Please don't let her down again, Jason. Those words hit me harder than anything Graham or the board had said. Mia wanted me. She needed me. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm inside me. The answer was clear now, though it wasn't easy. I couldn't walk away from them, not again. Not after everything that had happened. The next morning, I went to the hospital early. When I walked into Mia's room, she was sitting up in bed, her small face illuminated by the soft morning light. Her eyes met mine, and for the first time since I arrived, there was no hesitation, no fear. She didn't look at me like I was a stranger anymore. "Hi, Mia," I said quietly, sitting at her bedside. I couldn't stop the smile from creeping onto my face. For the first time, I felt like I was where I belonged. She looked at me, her small hands gripping the edge of the bed, her eyes bright and full of curiosity. "You're back," she said simply, her voice small but full of hope. "I'm not going anywhere," I said, my voice steady. "I promise." I glanced over at Chloe, who was standing in the doorway, watching us. She didn't say anything at first, just looked at me with a mixture of uncertainty and relief. "I'm here, Chloe," I said, turning to her. "I'm here to stay." The road ahead wasn't going to be easy. Mia still had a long way to go in her recovery, and I still had to face the storm of Devo Technologies and the board in New York. But standing here, with Chloe and Mia in front of me, I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't go back to the life I had left behind. Family had to come first. I was done running, and no matter what happened with the company, no matter what battles I had to fight, I wasn't leaving them again. I hadn't anticipated how deeply everything would affect me. The business world, my empire, all of it suddenly seemed irrelevant. Every decision I made, every contract I signed, seemed like a distant memory, insignificant compared to the very real lives of Chloe and Mia. I had been living in a world where success and ambition had defined me. But now, standing in the hospital, watching my daughter fight for her life, I understood what it truly meant to be vulnerable. For the first time, I was stripped of all my power, all my control. I woke up early the next morning, my mind restless, running through the same questions again and again. Was I doing enough for Mia? Was I doing enough for Chloe? The answers were elusive, tangled in a web of fear, guilt, and uncertainty. I couldn't fix everything. I couldn't make up for the lost years with Mia or the years of hurt I had caused. Chloe, I had spent so long running from what mattered, chasing power, chasing success, believing that if I just had more, I would be complete. But now I realized how much I had missed. The quiet moments with Chloe, the moments that mattered with Mia, they were irreplaceable. I couldn't bring back the past. I couldn't undo my mistakes. But I could try. I could try to be the man they needed me to be. I walked into Mia's room that morning, my heart beating faster with every step. She was sitting up in bed, a few toys scattered around her, but there was a quiet sadness in her eyes. The bright sparkle I'd seen the day before was gone, replaced by weariness. I knew she was still processing everything, still unsure of who I was. "Hey kiddo," I said, trying to sound light-hearted, but my voice felt strained. "How's my favorite patient doing?" Mia didn't answer right away. She just looked at me, her small hands folded in her lap. The silence between us was heavy, thick with the unspoken questions she had. "I want to go home," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. My heart clenched at the words. She was just a little girl. She shouldn't be dealing with something like this. She should be playing, laughing, enjoying her childhood. Instead, she was in a hospital bed, fighting for her life, and all I could do was sit there, feeling powerless. "I know you do, Mia," I said gently, sitting on the edge of the bed. "I promise we'll get you there. As soon as you're better, we'll get you home." She looked up at me, her eyes searching mine. "But you're not going to leave again, right?" I swallowed hard, the weight of her question settling in my chest. I had no idea how to answer it. How could I promise her something I wasn't sure I could keep? "I'm not going anywhere, Mia," I said, my voice firm. "I'm here, and I'm staying." Her expression softened just a little. For a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of hope in her eyes, but the doubts were still there, buried deep. She was still scared. I didn't blame her. How could she trust me when I had failed her, when I had failed Chloe? Later that afternoon, Chloe and I were alone in the waiting room. Mia had fallen asleep. The steady rise and fall of her chest, a reminder of how fragile everything still was. Chloe didn't look at me at first. She was sitting across from me, her eyes downcast as she picked at the hem of her shirt. I could feel the tension radiating off her. She was still so guarded, still so angry with me, and I didn't know how to bridge that gap. "You're here now," she said quietly, breaking the silence. "But it's not enough, Jason. You can't just show up and expect everything to be okay." "I know," I replied, the weight of her words landing on me like a brick. "I've said it before, but I need to say it again. I'm here for Mia. I'm here for you." She shook her head, her eyes filling with something I couldn't name. "It's not that simple. You don't get to just waltz in after all these years and think everything will be fine. Mia doesn't just need you to show up. She needs consistency. She needs to know you're not going to leave her when things get hard again." "I'm not leaving," I said, my voice firm. I won't. I'm not like before. I don't care about the company. I don't care about the money, Chloe. I'm here because I'm your family. And I'm here for Mia too. Chloe didn't respond right away, but I saw something flicker in her eyes. Maybe it was doubt, maybe it was hope, but it was there. You say that now, she said, her voice almost a whisper. But actions speak louder than words. Mia doesn't trust me completely, and she sure as hell doesn't trust you. And it's going to take time. It's going to take time for all of us to heal. I nodded, knowing that she was right. I couldn't fix everything in one conversation. I couldn't undo the past, but I had to show her. I had to show both of them that I was serious, that I was here to stay. I'm willing to do the work, I said, my voice low but determined. I'll be patient. I'll wait. For Mia, for you. Chloe's eyes softened a fraction. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was something. Maybe a crack in the wall she'd built around her heart. That night, after Chloe had gone home to get some rest, I stayed at the hospital with Mia. I watched her sleep, her small hand curled around a stuffed animal I had bought for her earlier in the day. The machines around her beeped softly, a constant reminder of the battle she was still fighting. I wasn't sure how long I sat there, but eventually I found myself lost in thought. I thought about all the years I had wasted, all the choices I had made that had led me to this point. I thought about Chloe, how she had raised Mia alone, how she had protected her from everything including me. I thought about the company, about the empire I had built. But more than anything, I thought about the future. There was a long road ahead, and I wasn't sure where it would lead. But I knew one thing for certain. I wasn't going to walk away again. I had failed them both in the past, but I wasn't going to fail them again. Not when they needed me the most. The past few days had been an emotional roller coaster. The guilt of missing Mia's early years, the weight of Chloe's anger, and the fear of never earning their trust were all hanging over me like a storm cloud. But as I sat there, watching Mia sleep, I realized that I wasn't running from my past anymore. I was facing it. The truth about my life was clear now. I had spent too much time focused on things that didn't matter, and not enough on the people who truly did. I had lost them once, but I wasn't going to lose them again. As I stood up, looking at Mia and Chloe's empty room, I knew that the fight for their love, for their trust, had just begun. It wasn't going to be easy, but it was the most important fight I'd ever have. And this time, I wasn't backing down. The days that followed were a blur of constant hospital visits, legal consultations, and endless phone calls. But there was a shift in the air, something heavier than just the weight of Mia's illness. It wasn't just about getting her well anymore. It was about taking control of my life, of my future, and of the people who had been hurt because of me. I knew it was time to confront the biggest threat in my life, the one I had been avoiding for far too long. Victor Sinclair, Ember's father. The man who had not only manipulated the past, but was now pulling strings in the background, using Mia's health to control us, to control everything. I had avoided facing him for years, but now there was no running, no avoiding the inevitable. I stood in front of the mirror that morning, staring at my reflection. The same face I had seen every day, but now it seemed different, hollow, unsure. I had spent years building an empire, trying to prove myself, trying to be the man I thought I needed to be. But all of that felt empty now. The real battle, the one that mattered, was standing in front of me. And it had nothing to do with spreadsheets, profit margins, or board meetings. It was about family. It was about Mia. Ember and I had been planning the confrontation with Victor for days, strategizing, trying to figure out how to play this game without falling into his hands. But I knew one thing: we couldn't play by his rules anymore. Victor Sinclair was a man who thought he could control everything, everyone. But I wasn't about to let him use Mia as a pawn anymore. We had to take the power back. The hospital room felt like a battleground, even though we were miles away from the real confrontation. But I could feel the weight of it every time I looked at Mia, her fragile body hooked up to machines, her future uncertain. And Chloe, her eyes, haunted and tired, spoke volumes without her saying a word. She was in this with me, but I could see the fear still lingering there. The fear that she had been carrying for years, afraid of trusting me, afraid of letting me back in. "Are you sure about this?" Chloe asked me, her voice tight, her hand resting gently on Mia's bed as she looked down at her sleeping daughter. "Victor won't go down, and he's not just going to let you take Mia from him." I nodded, though I wasn't sure if I believed it myself. But the truth was, we had no other choice. If we were going to have a chance at saving Mia and keeping her out of Victor's control, we had to confront him head on. "I'm sure," I said, my voice low but firm. "I've been running from this for too long, Chloe. But I'm not running anymore. We're going to take him down, together." Chloe met my gaze, her eyes searching mine for something, some sign that I wasn't just saying words, but that I meant it. The past couldn't be erased. I knew that. But I had to start somewhere, and this felt like the only way forward. By the time we arrived at Victor's penthouse office in the heart of Portland, the tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Victor Sinclair, the man who had been the invisible hand behind so much of what had happened, stood at the top of his world, looking down at us like we were ants beneath his feet. The moment I stepped into his domain, I felt the weight of his gaze, his power, pressing down on me. Victor was a man who had never been challenged. And now, for the first time, he was going to face someone who wasn't afraid to take him on. Chloe stepped forward, her posture stiff but resolute, her eyes narrowed as she faced her father. The years of resentment, of anger, all came rushing back in an instant. She didn't even need to speak. Her presence was enough to tell him she wasn't afraid anymore. "You've been using Mia, Victor," Chloe said, her voice controlled but full of fury. "You've been manipulating her health to control us, to control everything. And I'm done. We're done." Victor's lips twisted into a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "You think you can stop me? You think you can come in here, after everything I've built, and take it all away from me? You're nothing, Chloe. You always were." I stepped forward then, my voice cold and steady. "You're wrong. You think you can control everything, everyone. But Mia isn't your pawn. She's our daughter, and I'm not going to let you hurt her anymore." Victor's smile faltered just slightly, but he quickly masked it with a laugh. "You don't get it, do you? You think you're in control now. You think you can just waltz in and change everything. You're nothing but a fool. You've always been a fool, Phoenix." His words didn't faze me. If anything, they only fueled the fire inside me. This wasn't about proving anything to him. This was about Mia. This was about protecting the family I had ignored for far too long. "You're not in control anymore, Victor," I said, my voice low but cutting through the room. "Not of me, not of Chloe, and definitely not of Mia." Victor's face twisted with something close to rage. He stood there, glaring at us for a long moment, as if weighing his next move. Finally, he spoke again, his voice dripping with disdain. You think you've won, he said, stepping closer. This isn't over. You've made a huge mistake. But I didn't flinch. I wasn't going to let him intimidate me anymore. I had come too far. Chloe had come too far. We weren't backing down now. We've already won, Victor, I said, my words firm and resolute. The truth is out. You can't hide behind your money and power anymore. This ends now. Chloe and I turned to leave the penthouse, but just as we reached the door, Victor's voice echoed behind us. You'll regret this, he called out, but we didn't look back. I wasn't afraid of his threats anymore. He no longer had control over us. By the time we left the building, I could feel the weight of everything beginning to shift. Victor might have been powerful, but he was no match for the truth. For the love of a family willing to fight for each other, we didn't know what the next step would be. But for the first time, we had taken control, and that meant everything. I glanced at Chloe as we walked back to the car. Her face softer now, not quite the same as before. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was something. A step forward. Mia needed us both. We were going to build this together, and I wasn't going to let anyone stand in our way again. The air felt different as we left the towering walls of Victor Sinclair's penthouse, but I knew the battle wasn't over. It was far from it. The confrontation had been the first step, the beginning of a new chapter in our lives. We had exposed Victor's manipulations, but he wasn't the kind of man to go down quietly. I could already hear the wheels of retaliation spinning in the distance. But it didn't matter. For the first time in years, I felt like I was on the right path. The drive back to the hospital was silent. Chloe sitting beside me, her eyes looking out the window. She wasn't speaking, but I could feel the shift in her. The anger was still there, but it was quieter now, replaced by something else, something softer. Something I hadn't seen in her in a long time. Maybe it was relief. Or maybe it was hope. But there was a crack in the wall she had built around herself, and I could feel it. Mia was still asleep when we returned to the hospital. The doctors had given us positive updates. Her condition was improving steadily, though the road to full recovery would still be long. But for the first time, I felt like we could breathe. We had taken the first steps toward taking control of our lives again. I had taken the first step toward being the father Mia needed me to be that night, after another long day of medical updates and paperwork. Chloe and I found ourselves sitting in the quiet waiting room again. The hospital had settled into that strange stillness of the late hours quiet, but full of unspoken words. This time, Chloe didn't avoid my gaze. I know I've been hard on you, Jason, she said softly, her voice quieter than I had ever heard it. But I don't know how to do this alone anymore. I've been doing it for so long. I didn't speak right away, letting the weight of her words sink in. The truth was, I didn't know how to fix everything between us, but I had to try. I had to show her that I wasn't just here for Mia. I was here for her too. I'm not going anywhere. Chloe, I said finally, I'm here. For both of you, and I'll keep showing up. Every day. She looked at me for a moment, her gaze searching, uncertain, but something softened in her eyes. I don't know if I can forgive you, Chloe whispered, her voice thick with emotion. I don't know if I can ever fully trust you again. But for Mia, I'm willing to try. I'm willing to give us a chance. The words didn't come easily to her, but they were enough. Enough for now. Enough for us to begin again. I didn't need her to forgive me in an instant. I knew it would take time, but for the first time, I felt like there was a possibility, real possibility, that we could rebuild in the days that followed. Things began to fall into place, though they weren't perfect. Mia's condition continued to improve, and we spent more and more time together as a family. I didn't rush things with Chloe. I knew trust was something that had to be rebuilt brick by brick, and I was willing to be patient. But every day, I saw her soften. Her walls didn't come down completely, but they were cracking. And that was enough for me. One evening, I was sitting with Mia in her hospital room, reading her a story. Chloe was in the corner, sitting quietly, watching us. It was a simple moment, nothing grand or spectacular, but it was everything. I had missed this. I had missed them both. "Can we go home soon, Daddy?" Mia asked, her voice still soft from the medications, but full of hope. I smiled, my heart swelling in my chest. "Soon, kiddo. I promise." Chloe stepped forward, her gaze softening as she looked at us. For the first time in a long time, she didn't look like she was carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders. There was a vulnerability there, but there was also something else, something that told me we were on the right path. The phone call from the board came the next morning. It was Graham again, pushing for answers about the company, about my plans for Remington Technologies. I had been dodging their calls for days, but I knew I couldn't avoid it forever. The empire I had built was in jeopardy, and the clock was ticking. The board wanted to know if I was returning to New York, if I was ready to take the reins again. I glanced over at Chloe, who was sitting beside me in the waiting room, watching me carefully. I had made a decision, and for the first time, the decision had nothing to do with numbers or deals. It had everything to do with the life I wanted to build. "I'm not going back to New York," I said, my voice steady. "I'm staying here, with Mia, with Chloe. I've spent enough time running from what matters. The company can wait. I'm not running anymore." Chloe didn't speak, but I could see the flicker of relief in her eyes. This was what she had needed to hear. This was what Mia needed, too. A family, stability. The future wasn't about the empire I had built, it was about the family I had nearly lost. As I hung up the phone, I looked at Chloe and Mia. They were my future, and for the first time, I wasn't afraid. We had a long way to go, but I was ready to do the work. The company, my legacy, was important, but it was no longer my whole world. My whole world was sitting right in front of me. Mia, Chloe, family. I walked over to Chloe, took her hand and smiled. "We'll make it, Chloe," I said quietly. "We'll make this work." She squeezed my hand in return. Her eyes filled with something that had been missing for so long. Hope, as I sat there. Surrounded by the family I had nearly lost, I realized that everything I thought I needed was right here. The future was uncertain, the road ahead filled with challenges, but it didn't matter. I wasn't alone anymore. The decisions I had made up until now had led me here, to this moment of reckoning. But I was determined not to repeat my mistakes. The choices I made from here on out would be for them, for Chloe, for Mia. There would be no more running. This was where I belonged. And no matter what came next, I was ready to face it with them by my side.